know where it goes.
Okay, recording.
Okay, thank you, Susan. So I want to welcome everybody to the Narragansett Regional School District meeting of the Regional Agreement Amendment Committee. I do want to announce that this meeting is being recorded. We're hoping to get it live streamed, but for right now, it is being recorded. I do, before we get started, I want to thank Susan for everything she's done to keep us going with the Google Drive, the shared documents and everything. Thank you, Susan. Mac and Jay, for everything you did throughout the month to get us to prepare us for this meeting. And I will do some introductions, just because I will do some introductions. So I want to go through and just announce who is here. So I'm going to go off of the RAAC meeting member list. Okay. So for Templeton, I saw Sheila. Yeah, Sheila is here. Katrina is here. Tim Toth is absent tonight. Jeff Bennett is not here tonight. He's the alternate. Amy Guthrie is here. Carter, did I see Carter? No, Carter did not. Yet. Okay. Carter is not here yet. And for Phillipson members, Christine Bennett is here. James Buzzell is not here as of yet. Gerhard Fandryer is here. Linda Ellis is here. Kevin Flynn has not come in yet, right? Kevin Flynn is, huh? Kevin Flynn, yeah, he called it. He wouldn't be here tonight. And for school committee members, Jeff Marks, I am here, and Hank Mason is here. From the administrative side, Mac Reed is here. Jay Barry is here. Dr. Casavant is here, and Susan Varney is here. And let me see. Okay, so that's it. So again, just so there were some attachments that were in the shared drive throughout the month. I just hope we will be referring to those documents tonight. I hope that everybody had a chance to review them. And the next order of business will be to approve the meeting minutes of December 7th. Okay. Has everybody had it? Or I should ask, is there anybody who did not have a chance to review them? Okay. The only thing I will say, I don't think it's an issue, but I do want to mention it. It actually is the meeting minutes for December 7th on the agenda tonight. It actually says December 8th, but we are reviewing the ones for December 7th. We're reviewing and approving those ones. So I would entertain a motion to accept the meeting minutes for December 7th.
I'll second it.
Okay. I actually, that's a first. That's a motion to accept them. Will somebody second them?
I'll second it.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't see who made the initial motion. Was that Amy?
I think it was Sheila. Was it Sheila?
I think it was Linda.
Okay.
Linda, okay, I'm sorry. I was looking away for a second.
Okay, so with that, I will do a roll call to accept the meeting minutes. Again, I will be going off the member list as I do anything. Sheila? I didn't hear you, Sheila. Can you just do?
Yes.
Thank you. Katrina?
Yes.
Amy?
Abstain.
Okay. Christine?
Yes.
Gerhard? Gerhard, you're muted. Are you there? I see you unmuted, Gerhard, but I can't hear it. Could you just?
He says yes in direct message. He said yes.
Perfect. Thank you, Susan. Linda?
Yes.
Thank you. Kevin is absent. I will say yes. And Hank?
I'll abstain. I wasn't there at the meeting.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, I can. Yep.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Thank you, Gerhard. Okay. So with that, we'll move to old business, and we have some procedural items from the December 7th meeting that we're going to discuss and vote on. And with that, I will hand it off to Jay.
Okay, thanks very much, Jeff. Matt, can you call up the meeting procedures document so that people can see it? There we go. So I'm not going to read this, but I'm just going to summarize it, and hopefully we can approve it. These were all things that we talked about at the last meeting. So we'll be, Mac and I will develop the drafts for meeting agendas, and there'll be input from the district, of course, to sharpen those things up. Sue's going to take the minutes, and she's already done a great job establishing a Google folder for everybody. We do want to establish new meeting dates ahead of time, and that's one of the things that's on tonight's agenda after our discussion has ended. We'll try to start at 5 and wrap things up at 6:30. And Mac and I, during the course of this process, will be bringing some sections for discussion to you. And in some cases, we'll have edited language or new language and so forth. So you folks are the decision makers, and we're just putting some things in front of you to bring the agreement up to date. The number of decisions and issues we bring forward will really be variable depending on how challenging they are, how much discussion is needed, and so forth. We are, just like we did with the minutes, there'll be we're going to be, when we finish a section, and we probably won't be doing this tonight, but when we may be doing it tomorrow, next meeting. But when we finish a section, the process would be that there would be a vote for tentative approval. No, so the document's not definite. It's just a signal to the committee that consensus is there about the changes that we've made. And the tentative approval, we agreed, would require a majority vote of the committee with 3 votes from each member town, okay? And then at the very end of the process, and this is way off, there'll be a binding vote. And the standard for that is a little higher. So we agreed that there'll be a 3/4 majority vote needed, which is 10 people, and it will include members from both towns. We also added to the bottom of this document, because it is important, that if there's a unanimous vote when we're all done, it's really helpful to go into town meetings with that kind of support. So that's what we agreed to. That's what we're going to try to follow. Jeff, I don't know if there are any questions or comments, but we can do that, or we can move to a motion to approve our procedures.
No, I think we should just see if there's any questions or comments on the motion ahead of us, and then we can move to a motion. So
Sure.
I will open it up. Are there any questions or comments regarding the meeting procedures? Okay. So I see none, so I will ask for a motion to accept the procedures.
Second.
Thank you, Gerhard. Did I miss I miss a motion?
Jim Buzzell, he came in.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Jeff, if I can
Yep.
interject for a second, maybe just for the people that aren't familiar with how the meetings, how the motions and things can go, if you can just give a quick overall thing of how it goes, like someone makes the motion and then somebody else seconds it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
That might be helpful for everybody, I
Okay.
think.
Yeah, that would be helpful. So what we will do is when we have something that we are looking to vote on, I will ask for a motion to approve it or deny it. And then once I have the motion, once somebody makes a motion, I will need a second on it. And with that, we would move to to a vote. Oh, okay. So if it's okay, I believe it was Gerhardt who seconded it. Gerhard, can we just take that as a motion to just take that as a motion? And I'm looking for a second.
That
That's
was
fine.
That was Jim Buzzell, actually, that made.
Oh,
the-
was it?
James Buzzell, second.
Thank you. Okay, Susan, I think we're good there, okay? So I will go back and we will do a roll call vote on this. And this is for, to accept the meeting procedures. And let me just mark that Jim is here now too. Okay, so Sheila, I'll start with you.
Yes.
Thank you. Katrina,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes.
thank you. Jim?
What's that?
Voting on the meeting procedures.
Yes.
Yes.
Gerhard,
Yes.
thank you. Linda,
Yes.
I am a yes. And Hank,
Aye.
thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, everybody.
So, and with there, we're gonna go to the, we're just gonna go to Mac on the use of common terms. Is that correct?
That's right.
Thank you, Mac.
Does everyone see that on the screen?
Yes.
I do see it, yes.
Okay, these are terms that occur throughout the document. And the Department of Education has encouraged us to not have to write out all kinds of things like the Regional School District School Committee and just call it the committee, for example. So this is not changing anything. It's just kind of abridging the terms that will be used. And the only thing that's really changing things, most of the old regional agreements talked about pupils, and pretty much now the language is talking about students. And so that's our recommendation, that we, every time it mentions pupils, that we insert students instead. So is there any question about any of those terms?
Nope.
Okay,
Okay, Jeff, I guess we could call for a vote to let us do that.
absolutely, yep. So I'm looking for a motion to accept the use of common terms.
So moved.
Motion to accept the use of common terms.
Yeah, I think I got a motion from Hank and a second from Katrina.
Sure.
Okay, so I will do a roll call, I mean, a vote. Sheila, she's still with us?
Yeah, thumbs up.
Sheila, can you hear me? Oh,
How about now? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, yes, yep. Sheila, can I just hear a yes or a thumbs up?
Yes.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
yes.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, Katrina,
Yes.
thank you. Amy,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Jim, is it, what do you prefer, Jim or James?
Whatever floats your boat, Jeff.
You got it, thank you. Gerhard,
Yeah.
Linda,
Yes.
Jeff is a yes, and Hank.
Aye.
Excellent. So those are accepted. And Mac, you're gonna move on to the order original agreement?
Yes, hopefully that's up on the screen now.
Yes, it
As
is.
I mentioned last time, again, the Department of Education has suggested, recommended that we put these regional agreements in some order that has some flow to it. And the main thing is, looking on the right, to have the budget first. See, that's section 5. Then the apportionment is section 6. and then the notice about a debt in section 7. So generally, for some reason, all the old regional agreements that are all across the state don't have them in that order. So obviously, a district has to have a budget, and they decide the apportionment, and then they announce any debt that goes along with that. So that's mainly the main thing. Most of the rest of it is pretty much in the same order you have. So our recommendation is, if you approve this order, again, it's not taking anything out or not changing anything that you have in there. It's just reordering it. And if you approve of that, then we will be able to put that in the right order as we are discussing it, and it'll be a lot less confusing than have to move things around as we go along. So again, are there any questions about changing the order of your regional agreement?
Was this the way that the state suggested we do it?
Yes.
Oh, well, then I suggest we go with it.
Second.
Yep. Yep. So, yeah, was that was a motion?
Sure.
Excellent. And we got a second from Hank.
Yeah.
So I will do a vote call. Sheila,
Yes.
Katrina,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Christine, Jim,
That's a yay from me.
Gerhard,
Yeah.
Linda,
Yes.
Jeff is a yes, and Hank,
Aye.
it's unanimous.
All right, moving right along.
Excellent.
Are we ready to keep going, Jeff?
I think we are ready to keep going. I just want to mention, I know that we talked about it earlier. I didn't really get it from everybody. The document that is on the screen there, in case anybody hasn't already seen it, it is posted on the Google Drive, on the shared drive, and everybody has access to it if you want to follow along. Mac, take it away.
Okay, I'm just going to start, and then Jay is going to carry us through the first sections here. Just as a preliminary, I want to discuss these colors that you see here. It may seem a little confusing, but as we go along, I think you'll find that it makes it easy to follow. We want to keep track of everything that we do. So we're not going to delete things as we go along. We're going to keep them in there. So first, as you see, any new language that we decide upon, it will be in red letters. So Jay and I will propose some of that. You'll see that in a few minutes. And we'll put that in red. If any of you come up with language or say the committee says this is what we want, we will put those in red letters to show that it is not in your current agreement. Then in subsequent meetings, so next meeting, anything that we basically decide on tonight will be highlighted in yellow. So when we start the next meeting, we will go back and just look at anything that's highlighted in yellow to make sure your committee is okay with how Jay and I have worded things or inserted it in the right place or whatever. So you'll be able to find that easily. Then there will be some things, as you'll see soon, that we will want to delete, that are things that are not legal anymore or don't meet the region's needs or whatever. That language will be in blue and there will be a strike through. But again, anything that's in your current language will still remain there, but with a strike through. And the fourth thing is, often you'll see this tonight, Jay and I make comments along the way sometimes in your document saying, you could do this or you could do that. Here are some options. And we will put that in purple letters. So it's important that you be able to see it in color. So as we go along, we'll eventually be deleting the purple language once we're done with that section. But the other three colors will remain there all the way to the end. Because as we get going, Jay and I will be communicating with the Department of Education and saying, this is what the Regional Amendment Committee is doing so far in Narragansett. Does this look okay? So they'll want to see what is there now and what we would like to change. So it's important that we keep that all the way through, and anybody along the way in your communities or anywhere, we get to the end, if they want to say, well, what did you change? We'll be able to show that. So at the very end, and maybe even before the end, there will be 3 documents. One will be this document that will have all the changes in it. There will be a second document that will have anything that's going to be deleted, already deleted. So there'll be just red letters and the black letters. So that'll be a document that'll basically look like it's going to in final form. It'll just show some red letters of what is new language. And then there will be a final document that'll all be in black, just like your current document. Whatever you all agree to that you want to send to the Regional School Committee, it will be in black. So there'll be three versions. So anybody, it's going to be open book, so anybody can see what's happening along the way. So I guess before we go any further, have I confused everybody, or does that sort of make sense so far?
I'm fine.
I think it sounds good, Mac. I do have a question though, Mac. I know it's in the shared folder. Is it editable by everybody, or is it just you and Jay? And if that's the case, what's the best way throughout the month or as we're going along? Just to take hard copy notes for the next meeting and bring them to the meeting? Or how do you what's the best way to work that?
Yes, I'm not sure if Susan, did you put a PDF version in there or not? We can't hear you.
Unmute yourself.
Sorry. In the folder I did. Let me just take a quick look.
So that's fine. In the past, I haven't worried about the PDF file, but we would appreciate if individuals would not be modifying things, but you can write on your document and certainly be prepared to share it with the committee at the next meeting. Or if you, again, we didn't talk about this, but if you have a question during the month,
yep,
if this is okay with you, Jeff, we would prefer that we get only questions from you. So if anybody on your committee has a question, we would prefer that that goes through you and then to us, so that you will always know what's going on. So there won't be a surprise at the next meeting that we've been communicating with somebody that you didn't know about. Is that okay?
I think it's okay. Yeah, I don't know if there's an issue with anybody on that. It seems like it would keep things in order.
This is James Buzzell. I could speak on both of your points. I think there's kind of 2 separate points. Excuse me. Firstly, yes, I agree that just Jeff should be funneling everything through him. All of our stuff should go to him. He should go to you and back and forth. And then that way it keeps everything simplified. That's a great idea and a great point. Secondly, as far as if I'm stating this correctly, you're speaking to the Google shared drive document. Is that correct, sir?
That is correct, Jim. Yes.
Yeah. So I've got a bunch of experience of that through military use, and allowing every Tom, Dick, and Harry to stick their fingers in the pot is a mess, and should not be. When I first got the link saying everyone can access this document, I immediately thought it might have been a mistake. So I agree with you that should not be. I don't think anybody should be editing the document. I think if anyone wants to make any edits, they should do one of 2 things: either download it as a Word document and make the edits themselves, and then, to the first point, pass them through Jeff, and or make the notes on a piece of paper and then present them at the next meeting.
If I can just interject for a quick second. In the Google Doc, so there is a PDF of this in the file. There's also the Google Doc. I can change it so everybody can comment on the document, but not edit the document. So each person, if they have something to say about it, they can put it in the comments and it won't change the document until it's accepted by the administrator. That way it's just easier because you're not seeing, like, suppose 5 different people are suggesting the same thing. You can kind of see what other people are thinking, and it kind of streamlines it a little bit without making the changes to the document, if that makes sense.
Actually, I have a comment, Susan. So I think it's a constructive idea, but one of the things that needs to be avoided is deliberation online outside of a meeting. Okay, so it's I don't know where the group wants to be on that, but there shouldn't be anything that constitutes deliberation in the Google file because of open meeting law.
Gotcha.
So I prefer what I don't know. I think it was Jeff made the comment that make your notes and bring them to the next meeting, and we can build your thoughts and suggestions. Mac and I can do it into the document, and that way it kind of stays focused. That's certainly something we've done in the past.
Right. I would follow up with that. I would agree that if individuals start making comments along the way during the month, it's going to be difficult to follow that. And I would agree with Jay that it would be great if people would make their own notes, bring them to the next meeting, and we'll discuss them. And then if it needs more discussion, we can hold it to the next month. But it was best, I wasn't thinking so much about people making suggested changes, but if you have questions about the process or where things are going or what we're going to do, those are the kinds of things that I think might funnel through Jeff and to us, and we'll try to deal with those.
Right.
And in the meantime, I will change everybody's access to just viewers on this Google Drive, if that makes more sense.
Yes, definitely.
People can go in and look, and then there's no, temptations or risk of anyone accidentally even changing something. So I'm doing that as
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so move along. I'll just say one more thing and then Jay's going to take over. So since we reordered things and the pages are all going to be different, this is an example. We put a strike through in blue letters through this whole table of contents and built a new table of contents in the order that we were hoping that you would be agreeing to, which you voted on. So that's just an example of what might happen. So I don't think there's anything to discuss there, but otherwise, Jay, you want to take over there?
Sure, and please feel free to join in here. So the first section, the Regional School District Committee, does bring up some substantive things that we've got to discuss. And as we go through the document, it might help to think of our conversation tonight in kind of a part 1, part 2 kind of way.
Everybody should mute their microphones if they could, please.
Okay, so there's kind of a part 1 and a part 2 to this discussion about the Regional School Committee. Matt, can you scroll up for just a minute to the opening paragraph? We didn't make many changes here. We put in a new date, and we took out, the word sometimes, some really minor wordsmithing, and didn't really think anything else was needed there. So under the section A, the name and the composition of the committee, I'll give people a moment to sort of scroll through this, even though you've probably seen it. The committee has 8 members now, 5 from Templeton and 3 from Phillipston. That's fine. That doesn't need to change if you're happy with that arrangement. In terms of section B, the members are elected in a district-wide election with residency requirements, if I'm not mistaken. And the term of 3 years is fine. And the fact that they serve until their successor is elected is fine, doesn't need to change. And then, right, and so then this election sort of rotates, so all the seats are filled. If you could scroll down a little bit more. Now, one of the things that does need to get addressed here is that while it's okay to have the number of people on the school committee as is, and it's okay to do district-wide elections, what's not okay is that you do them at the time of the town election, okay? And that is not in compliance with state law and the options that are given to regional districts around one man, one vote. So these are the options that the amendment committee has. Number one is really the simplest option, and that is that you get through your state rep and your state senator, you get special legislation to maintain the current election process exactly as it is, okay? And nothing needs to change. The legislation would just say that as an exception, you don't need to do the elections at the biennial state election as the law says, but you can continue to do them at the annual town elections, okay? If you don't want to get special legislation, the next option is to hold elections every other year in November with the state elections. And then the third option really gets into building the whole thing back up from scratch, where you look at different ways of composing the school committee, okay? So that's something that you know requires some thought here. So I kind of want to leave it where it is, because the next section gets into whether or not a lot of language in sections 2, 3, and 4 stays in the agreement or is changed somehow. So comments and thoughts about the options in front of you. And once again, I'll just summarize. What you've got right now for school committee composition and elections is fine, with the exception of when the elections happen, okay? And those are the options you could use to fix this and bring the agreement into compliance.
So yeah, the issue is, are you happy with the way you're doing the elections? If you are, then number one is the way to go. If you want to think about it differently, then we have to look at the other options.
I'd like to ask Jeff what he thinks about the timing of the elections. Like when you came on in May, did it matter versus coming in November? Would that make a difference to how you participate in the committee? And I also have a question for the Mars gentleman about our provision that each member is voted on by both towns, because I've heard from a lot of other people that that's not normal in their town. So is that usual, or is it, you know, should we reconsider that part as well?
Hey, real quick, this is Jim Buzzle. Can I just interject before Jeff even addresses that question? I'm just wondering what the people from Templeton think about trying to vote on changing the voting procedures in your town. Because I know in Phillipston, if we try and submit an article and vote on it to change the way our elections happen, it's going to take 6.5 million years.
Yeah, that's a good point. To one of the questions that was asked earlier, I'm having a little trouble keeping track of names, I'm sorry, but the district-wide election option is one of the options that you can use. So if I'm not mistaken, your elections call for people to identify their town of residence, and then everybody votes on those people by town of residence. Is that correct?
Yes, that's how it is now.
Yeah, and that's fine. You can keep that.
Are
And
there any other reasons to change it
if you're
based
happy
on your
with it,
experience?
yeah, if you're happy with it, then you know, one of the, if I can just sort of back up for a minute, one of the things that we sometimes mention during these amendment agreement projects is that a lot of times, you know, if you're satisfied with things, don't change things unless you need to. You know, if there are provisions within the agreement that are working, leave them be, you know.
Hi, it's Katrina. I guess the only question I have is it going to be difficult to get special legislation through the state? Is that going to be harder to push through than to get legislation? Just, if it's going to take us forever to get it through the towns, I can't imagine getting it special legislation through the state is going to be easier.
Yeah, so Matt can also chime in on this if he wants, but this has come up several times during our work around amending regional agreements. And there is standard language that can be used to draft this. In fact, we can supply it to you. And we can also help reach out to your rep and your senator, get this done. It's not a completely unusual thing to ask for, but you do have to time the request so that it lines up with the legislative calendar. But it's not something that takes years and years. I mean, usually this gets done in a relatively timely way.
Right.
Jay, can I just ask, does that follow the life of the agreement, or do you have to do that annually or anything?
Great question. So if you, once you get the legislation passed, it's permanent.
Thank you. And if there's no other questions on that one, I'm just going to get back up because Christine did ask a while ago about when I came on. Christine, I had no issue with it. I will say that I didn't initially come on at the town vote. I actually took an open seat. So I don't know if it was a year prior, but I came on earlier than that. And I had no problem. I mean, it went right. It went through with ease. I didn't notice any issues. There was no problem with it. So I know Hank is on here as well. I don't know if I know he's been on the committee longer, and I don't know if he wants to comment on that as well.
I think it works fine just the way it is right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
All right. Jeff, then would it be okay? I spoke earlier about kind of a part one, part two, and although we're not going to vote right now because we're going to vote on the whole section, is it okay to assume that we've got some consensus around the fact that we want to leave this the same as much as is possible and look into this idea of special legislation? Can we assume that for the moment?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, I think that's right. I do think that's right. I didn't hear anybody object to it. It sounds like we did have consensus. So I would say, yes, we could begin the process of moving forward with that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so obviously we'll return to all of these things, but to move further into the.
Just a minute, a couple of hands up, yellow hands up there. Gerhardt has a hand up.
Okay, sorry, I missed that. Yep.
Okay, so my question is, if we wanted to have a discussion about some parts of this article, we wouldn't be doing that today, right? We'd be doing that at the next meeting. Is that correct?
If I understand your question right, we've got a lot left to talk about in this one article. Yeah.
Okay, so no, my question is so I have a problem with the makeup and the reasons being, but I don't have time today to discuss that because I'm going to be leaving here shortly to go to another meeting.
Okay.
So I guess I'll get my information set up, and then we'll end up going back over this first article and at the next meeting then.
Okay, so if I understand your point, then your question is about, or your concern is about the 5 from one town and the 3 from another. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any? Can you carry that forward a little bit and help us understand what it is you'd like to see or what's wrong?
Well, the thing is that Phillipson really has no voice here, having only 3 members. It's not a fair vote because Templeton is so much larger, and whatever they decide, Phillipson has to follow along with, having only 3 votes. There's no even Stephen here. So okay. I would suggest that we make it 4 votes per town, and if another town comes in, they get 4 votes as well, so that everything stays the same.
Okay. Your point about having the smaller town having a voice is something that Mac and I discussed as we prepared for the meeting. And a little further into this article, we actually have some suggestions that address that without having to change the composition of the committee, but conditions and provisions that can be written into the agreement that give Phillipston a much stronger voice.
So
Well, I'll have to see that before before we vote on it.
Absolutely,
we
absolutely.
can definitely rediscuss this next month. That
Yeah.
Okay.
specific.
Yeah, we'll make a note to come back to this 5 versus 3 composition, okay?
All right. Thank you.
You bet. Okay, so the second part of this gets into the election itself. And the paragraph you see there in purple is taken from another regional agreement that's previously been approved and gone through the whole process with the state and the commission, everybody else. And let me just sort of pose the question. You have extensive language in sections 2, 3, 4, and 5, I believe, about how the district would run its own election, okay? And what Mac and I want to explore with you is whether you want to keep that language. There are really 3 options here. One is because you don't run your elections, the towns run the elections as we understand it. Correct me if I'm wrong about that, but Narragansett doesn't run the election, the towns do. Is that correct?
Only during a joint town meeting, the district would run the election.
I'm not following that.
Well, we had a case last year where Phillipston didn't agree with our assessment vote, so we had to have both towns come in and have a joint town meeting, and then they had a joint another election that the district ran, a special election.
Was that a vote on the budget or was that an election?
That, well, yeah, no, that was a budget.
On the budget.
Yeah, so what I'm talking about here is
Just election, okay,
electing members to the school committee, okay?
okay.
And the way I understand this is that the town of Phillipston and the town of Templeton run the annual town elections.
True.
And
Yes.
you cooperate with them in terms of the candidates and any kind of information that might need to go back and forth, okay?
Right.
Sections 2, 3, 4, and 5 in this agreement takes up a lot of pages, explains how the district would run its own election, okay, which you don't do, and which most school districts, regional districts, don't do, okay? I think Mac and I would recommend to you that you don't want to get into the business of running elections. You've got enough to do. But at any rate, there are 3 options. One is that you can keep all this language in the agreement if you want to. And the rationale for that might be that in the event that you ever have to run an election, the language is there telling people how to do it, okay? Second option is to take it out. And the rationale for that would be that you have implicit trust in how the towns run their elections, and you foresee that there will be no problems in the future about them running the elections and the district cooperating with that election process. So there's no need for all of this explanation. And then the third option is to take the language in sections 2, 3, 4, and 5 and put them in an appendix as opposed to in the regional agreement. And the rationale for that might be that you don't want to delete it completely because you don't know what's going to happen in the future. You realize you don't need it as an integral part of the agreement, but it's there as an appendix should the need ever arise. Okay. So this paragraph that's at the bottom of page 5 is something like this would be inserted into the agreement if you took it out completely. All right. So we're just putting some language in there to give you a sense of what it would look like if all of this language about elections went away. Can you scroll? We'll come back to this. I don't mean to
Interject
rush.
for a quick second. Amy Guthrie has a comment that she wanted to make. She had
Sure.
it up and wasn't called on. Go ahead, Amy.
Thanks. I just wanted to say that I think this portion of the document would really benefit from input from Board of Select members and town officials, like a TA or a town manager, because these processes are done by the town normally. So their input on how fast legislation can move, or the possibility or probability of changing things that have been in place for a long time, could be facilitated a little bit better if the Board of Selectmen or Select Board can come together from both towns. I think it may move a little faster. I understand this is a different thing because it's the regional committee that makes it happen, but I think with the boards on either side working together. So it's unfortunate that the Templeton representatives aren't here, but just, I feel like that could be benefited. I know we're going to talk about it more later, but I just thought that needed to be said.
Sure. Good point.
If I could just add something, Jay.
Yeah.
If, let's say you do decide to keep your election process the same way and you get dispensation from the state. If you took this out of your agreement or put it as an appendix, if anything ever changed that you wanted to do your election differently, you would have to redo this regional agreement anyway, and you could put it back in or put it wherever you want to. So any major change in how you would do your election was going to have to, another committee like this would have to put some new language together to make it happen.
Okay, so we have some input that we definitely want select board members to kind of weigh in on this and perhaps provide some advice. And Mac, if you could scroll down a little further.
And I just want, I see Linda. Linda, do you have a question? Linda, I see the hand. I don't know if we're going by the raised hands.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we have Gare here from Phillipston, and I do believe taking that language out and the process of going through and changing this by putting it in an appendix, that could cause a lot of strife. If people wanted to put it back in, it could take years and years and years to change it back. So I'm trying to digest this in a way that would, I think the townsfolk in Phillipston at least would not be happy about that one.
Somebody could correct me if I'm wrong, but even an appendix is officially part of the regional agreement.
Right.
So whatever's in the appendix is the law as well. So it's not throwing it out and just saying, well, it's there if you want to use it. It's part of the regional agreement. It's just a question of making your agreement a little more efficient so that people can find things and dealing with the things that happen on a regular basis.
Then why would we move it?
Just to make it, your agreement look a little more efficient and find things more easily, but it's not obviously necessary unless you want to remove it.
I think Katrina has a question.
So maybe I'm misunderstanding, because what I'm hearing is if we take this piece out that we're talking about taking out, it's not going to change the process at all. Because it sounds to me, hang on, buddy, that the process is really already set forth by the towns, and this is just outlining the process that the towns already have to fill those seats.
May I make popcorn?
Go away, please. Thank you.
Yeah, so to clarify a little bit more, or to try to, as Max said, if this existing language goes into the appendix, it's part of the agreement. It's still there. It's still active. It's still legitimate. It doesn't require doing anything all over again if it has to be used, okay? But it does represent about 7 pages that describes a process that you don't use anymore. So that's why we wanted to ask you what to do with it. And in fact, I don't know if this helps you think more clearly about it or not, but I think Mac and I sort of feel like moving it to the appendix is the best idea. We're not necessarily recommending to you that it be deleted. Okay.
If what I hear is right, it's similar to just reordering it and things like that. It's really just to clean up the process. And Katrina, just to speak to your point, unless I'm missing something, it's currently it's the elections run by the towns. This language is just saying if the district were to run the election as opposed to the town, in the event we decided to do it, and that's what this language is. And that's why I think Mac and Jay were saying it hasn't been used, because we haven't used it in, I don't know if it was ever used or just many years. Is that correct, Jay?
That's our thought about this, right? It describes a process that's not being used. The towns are running the election, and unless you tell us different, it seems like it's going satisfactorily. But if you want that insurance of having a process, should you need it, if it's in the appendix, it's there for you. And in some ways, that's a better place for it because it's not being currently utilized. Any other questions or comments?
No, the only other thing is, I don't know if they've left already, but I know there were some folks that are leaving. And I just want to mention again that this is being recorded. It will be posted on the website. So any of the discussions that we're having tonight before next month's meeting, you could just review it and see anything that we discussed. And if there's any questions or comments on anything that we've talked about tonight, like I say, I know there were at least a few people that needed to leave at 6 o'clock. We could just review that, and we could be prepared for next week. Next month. My apologies.
Okay.
Hey, I don't know what your feeling is, but I am assuming that we are not going to call for a vote on any of this tonight.
No, that's right.
Let people think about it, and we'll let you can talk about it again next month.
Right. So the last section in purple here is just the three options. It could remain in the agreement, particularly if the district is involved in elections or wants to be. B, it could be placed in the agreement as an appendix, should you ever need it. And then C, the last option, which sounds like people are kind of uncomfortable with, and I'm not sure that Mac and I were recommending that in the first place. But those are the three options. Okay.
I would just say, sometimes you've asked about what's in other people's agreements. I've probably read almost 40 regional agreements, and I've only seen it in either 2 or 3. They have all that language in there. So it's not typical, but it's not a problem to have it there.
Right.
Mac, just to clarify, Mac, when you say it was in those few agreements, was it in an appendix, or was it actually in the body of the agreement?
The last one I did was down at Blackstone Millville, and it is in the body of their agreement, like yours, and they did keep it there.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to use our time here. All of the text in black ink is the section that we've been talking about. So it basically describes the election. And I don't really have a lot to say about that. You can see, most of page 6, most of page 7, most of page 8, most of page 9. Okay, if you could stop here, Mac, I managed to answer my own question. I had a question when I read this about if the town has already, how does it read here? If the town has already certified the results. So what does it mean that the committee is going to tabulate the results? And it turns out that we don't need to change this. We can delete the purple text, because kind of an old-fashioned meaning of the word tabulate is to record. So that can stay absolutely, it's fine the way it is. And I retract my question.
Or should we substitute a record versus tabulate? Because that is confusing, I think.
Well, it's up to, I'm fine with it. The committee can, if they want a different word, that's fine. But tabulate does mean in some instances record. Okay. Oh, and then the other blue ink with the question mark. Maybe the committee can help me with this. When people are elected to the school committee, who swears you in?
Oh, clerk.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
town clerk of each, whose ever town they're from.
Right. So that's why that question is there. The secretary of the school committee, it's something Mac and I don't know if I can use the word never, but we haven't seen that certainly recently. And almost in all cases, the procedure in regional school districts is that the town clerk from the appropriate town would swear them in.
So
that's
even though that's in blue, that's really part of your current regional agreement.
So we might want to, the prompt after the election members committee shall be sworn in by the, so it wouldn't be a one or the other. If you're okay with this, we would just change it to be discharge of their duties by the municipal clerk of the town in which they reside. Okay.
If there was a motion for this, I would second it.
Yeah, why don't we, I don't know, I appreciate the support here, but maybe we should vote on the section in its entirety when
Well,
we're,
Jay, I think that's okay. If people, there may be little sections that people want to get out of the way. And if you do that, then I can make sure that it's fixed before the next meeting.
yeah, well, it does clean it up. That's fine. I'm good with it. That's fine.
So Jeff, if you want to take a motion and a vote on that, deleting the secretary, that would be good.
Yeah, we can certainly do that. I mean, we've got members that left. I think we're okay just to, unless somebody's opposed to it, I think we're okay just to change the wording and vote on it as a whole as it comes through. I don't think we need to get into voting on every word change that we do. I think we can just, more do a global thing.
Agreed.
For that.
Okay, so why don't we just change it, but somehow rather highlight it so that people know it's a change, Mac?
So yeah, if you could just go ahead and highlight whatever changes you want in this entire section. James Buzzell, make them. I don't know if this is how it's going to work for you, Jeff, but make a motion to accept all changes as written and recommended by Mars for this section.
Yeah. So we've got a lot of things to explore before we're finally ready, but I think the highlight in yellow will call people's attention to a change here that most people support, right?
Yeah, I agree. And again, just a reminder that, this is a live document, and after tonight's meeting, it'll go back into the Google Drive so everybody can see the highlights and the changes that were made, so that we can review them when we look at the entire section as a whole.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jeff, if I could modify that just a little bit, when there's the discussion about things tonight, at some point, Jay and I will work on this, but it might not be for the next number of days. And when we get it squared away, we'll send it to Susan to put up, but it'll definitely be more than a week before their next meeting. Is that okay?
All right. I understand. So I understand. Yeah, my apologies. Yeah. So when the edits from tonight's meeting and then it will be back into the Google Drive. Is that what you're saying, Mac?
Yeah. Yes.
My apologies.
No, that's fine.
Okay, so we have to dive back into this election process again, and that's why this purple ink is at the bottom of page 10. So just assuming that this idea of keeping things the same and getting special legislation is of interest. If that happens, the elections must be on the same day. Okay, and that's a critical thing. And I would imagine right now, and please help me understand if this is not the case, the Phillipston town elections and Templeton town elections are on the same day? No, yes,
Sometimes.
Yeah, I don't, not always.
okay. If you, if you go with this option, the elections, the district-wide elections by residency, the elections have to be on the same day.
Jay, I'm sorry, this is Chris. I just want to make, I think it was maybe last year or the year before, I thought that both towns had made some type of an, I don't want to say an agreement, but certainly put them, I want to say in the same day. You know, maybe we probably need to go back to that. If Carter was here, I guess, or Kevin, we could ask him. I could have swore there was some discussion about that, but again,
Okay.
I defer.
All right, no, that's really helpful, Chris. Thank you.
Hey,
But it is a, and I'd like Mac to chime in on this too, but this is a very important kind of requirement. And so as long as the elections happen on the same day, everything's good. If they don't happen on the same day, then that method of election doesn't work. And some regional agreements have language in them that, you know, if the special legislation is not secured, or if the elections happen on different days, then the elections have to revert to the biennial state election. Okay. So I'm sorry if this sounds kind of complicated, but in order to leave things the same, and this is why Chris's comment is really important, there has to be a commitment for the towns to do the elections on the same day.
I think maybe last year was the exception, but ever since I've been on, it's always been the same day, as far as I can remember.
Great. So this would be another point, if correct me if I'm wrong here, that we would want select board input on, right?
Yeah, definitely, yes.
Can
Yeah.
Chris or someone check on that with, see if there's an agreement between the towns to do the same day or not,
Yes, I will send an email out. I was just starting to get that going, but I will definitely, verify that.
And if you could let us know before the next meeting so we can include that in our notes here.
I will. I'll email the committee.
All right, thank you, Chris.
That'd be real helpful. You can't have some people knowing about the elections in one town before they voted themselves. So that's, or even the possibility of that happening. So that brings us to number 3 here, which is vacancies. And the language is fine as is. Don't need to change anything. And this is a case where Mac and I have put a suggestion in front of you that you can think about. So this one, the suggestion we have here is something that we see in many regional agreements. And I'll just make up an example. Let's say that a Templeton school committee member moves to Florida or whatever, and you have a vacancy. The way that filling the vacancy would work in some districts is that the remaining members from Templeton would meet jointly with the Templeton Select Board to appoint a member for the remainder of the term. Right now, it all stays with you folks on the school committee. The suggestion is, do you want to include selectmen in the appointment of a member when there's a vacancy?
That seems to make the most sense, to have the select board from the town of the vacancy involved with the school committee to appoint someone to fill the vacancy. That seems like it makes the most sense to me, but obviously it's open for everyone else to discuss.
Sure.
My only thing about that was if sometimes it's difficult to get all the committees together. So I don't know if that would make a lag in actually filling the seat if it needed to be filled to get, as opposed to just the school committee together. Now you need the school committee and the select board together.
Right. So Katrina, one of the things that, this is the way it worked in the district where I was superintendent for 8 years. And when we had a vacancy, what we did was we asked to be, once we had a volunteer or somebody who was, maybe there was more than one, but once you had somebody who was interested, the school committee would ask to be on the agenda of the next select board meeting. Okay, so that it didn't get put off forever. And then, I'm just making up an example, but 2 or 3 school committee members go to the select board meeting and they say, this is Mrs. Jones and she's willing to take this term for the remainder of the time involved, and they vote and it's done. So it takes a little bit of work to get everybody together, but if you ask to be an agenda item on a select board meeting, you could also do it the other way around and ask the selectmen to come to an agenda, an action item on the school committee agenda, but whatever is faster or more efficient or preferable, that's generally the way it works.
I know, Jay, when I did come on, this is exactly how I did come on. It was a temporary, because a member did leave. And it was just the school committee, and I thought it worked fine. Again, it was only a temporary appointment until the next town election.
Right.
So
we can leave it as is. What you've got is in compliance.
Yeah.
And if it stays that way, Matt can correct me if I'm wrong here, but that language will be approved by the state. You can continue to do it that way.
I mean, obviously we'll have to have a discussion on this because I think we need some more discussion on it, but I don't think we're doing anything right now, but I'm not opposed to leaving it the way it is.
Okay.
So I think that if you leave it to the school committee, and I'd like to say, I don't think this happened in your case, Jeff, but I think if you leave it to the school committee, some people could say that it's a little bit of, I don't know what the right words are now. I've been up since 4 a.m. at the mountain. So I think that it could be a little bit of, scratch your back, scratch my back, kind of a little quid pro quo, where the school committee may say, well, we got the guy we want, or we got the woman we want to fit this spot. Whereas allowing the town select board in, and I can understand it may take an extra month to appoint a person, but in the reality of it, if the school committee can appoint this week and we just need to wait another week or 2 to get the select board, or 2 of the 3 members of a select board to voice their opinion, it might make things seem, it might spread oil on troubled waters for anyone who would be willing to step up and say, this isn't the way things should be. Again, I think the way things ran last time was fine, and I don't have a problem with it, but I just would like to say that some people probably will have a problem with it, and yeah, that's it.
I have a couple thoughts here. One is, I'm guessing that the select board, when they have a vacancy, do not ask anybody else their opinion about filling that vacancy. So that's one thing. On the other
They
side,
definitely do. There's a vote when the select board has a vacancy from the town. There's a special election to fill the vacancy.
oh, they can't fill it themselves?
Nope.
Okay, well then that's a good point. And the other thing is, on the other side of the coin for me is, it just may be some little olive branch by the school committee to have the select board feel that they're working with them to do the right thing for the town.
Kind of how I feel about it as well. And again, the way things have been running for the last 30 or 50 years, or however long we've been doing it, has not been a problem. But it seems a problem with the way things are being run. So it might be, and I'll.
We might have lost him.
Yeah, so if people could think about how their preferences regarding select board participation, so that when we revisit this next time, maybe we can make a tentative decision about about including them or not. I'm going to move down to organization here. And one of the things that comes up here is whether you want to change the word. Well, I shall take this in order. It's not, you're not in compliance if you choose your chairperson by a ballot, secret ballot vote in an open meeting. So that's why choose by ballot has a blue strike through it, okay? And it has been replaced, Mac and I are suggesting in red that the committee shall organize and vote to appoint, okay, a chair and a vice chair from its membership. And of course, the other thing that, you know, will go with what you want to do you want to leave the term chairman, or do you want to move to a chairperson term? So those are the two things that are embedded in that, in the beginning of that paragraph. Thoughts?
And that makes me think too about, is your board, your select board, are they a select board? Are they still a board of selectmen? We should put the right thing in this document as well.
I thought we did get, I thought Kevin commented on that. Kevin in,
To select board.
Yeah.
I believe that at the annual town meeting or the special town meeting, Phillipston switched to select board, or at least we tried to. There might have been a vocal minority saying not to do it, but I thought we changed to select board.
I think Carter and Kevin did comment on that last.
It's on our common terms that we discussed last time, that's what they switched to.
Right, well, we'll put that in. If somebody along the way says that's not appropriate, we can change it.
And I do think, I do think it should be changed to chairperson as well. You know what I mean? I don't think that's a big change, but I think it is politically correct to change that, I think. So I think that's probably a good move.
All right.
Agreed.
We'll for the next draft, we'll leave it as vice chair, chairperson and vice chairperson.
Thank you.
Now, the other, I believe in red here, Matt can correct me if I'm wrong. This is a suggestion, I believe.
Yes.
This is something that in two-town regional districts sometimes comes up. Is there, and basically it's this, is there any interest in having the chairperson in alternate terms be from one town and then the other town? So Phillipston has a chair for X number of years, and then Templeton has the chair, has a chairperson for X number of years. And this language just explains how the rotation would be maintained in future years. And it also gives you an escape hatch. A 2/3 vote of the committee may in a given year deviate from this standard regarding the rotating chairpersonship or whatever. So I don't know if you have any thoughts about that. We can work to include that. We can drop it. One of the, obviously on one hand, it's nice to give each town a turn at chairing the school committee. One of the things that also does come up from time to time, I don't know if it's relevant for Narragansett or not, is finding the person who's willing to do the work of a chairperson. And so does it complicate matters even further if you got to find somebody who's willing to do the work and you got to find somebody from the right town? And so that can sometimes be a complication. It may also revert to this business of, if it's working, if it's not broken, don't fix it. So
Yeah, that's my thinking.
Yeah, I would agree that allowing the school committee to choose their own chairperson makes the most sense, and switching it from town to town year in and year out would probably add just a little bit of extra confusion, and possibly just drag things out a little bit more the way things have been going.
Okay.
It does speak to somebody, I think, who left earlier about wanting to have it 4 and 4, for example. It's possible that the smaller community would never have a chairperson.
That's not true, because Margaret Hughes is from Phillipston and has been the chairperson for years. So that's not even an issue. That comment from earlier about the 4 and 4 was exactly what I was saying earlier, as some people are trying to drag their heels in this. And if we allow that to happen, it's just going to drag this out for 3 or 4 years. But I really believe that allowing the school committee to choose its own chairperson is a non-issue and shouldn't even be something we address.
Okay.
And just to follow up on what Jim said, my feeling is that if you have the right committee on there, they're going to rotate it to the most appropriate or the person that is best for that position anyways.
Exactly.
So.
Okay. So
Might
we
also
can.
be
I have a
different
question.
to Have people volunteer to be on the committee if there's, oh, I have to take a turn as the chair, which might be more than some people are willing to take on.
Sure. Good
I have a
point.
question. Does this document give the power to the school committee, or is it a separate document?
Right now,
To elect the chairperson?
the school
No.
committee.
In general, like, is this the document that empowers the school committee to act for the district as the district? It creates the district, am I correct?
This is the document that defines how the district governs itself and finances itself. Yes.
Okay, so then I would propose perhaps at some other section in this document, maybe there's a discussion about term limits for a chairperson. Or maybe it's with the knowledge that, the person who's serving is the most fit, and then it shouldn't exceed, I don't know, whatever the school committee should definitely have input on that, just to encourage a sort of rotation without dictating it's got to be from this town and then this town and then this town. Like any good leader, stagnation can happen. So just throwing it out there as a different thing, because there's talk about leaving it to the school committee, and that's what we're doing, is deciding what the school committee is doing.
Right. So
we can add some language to that you can discuss next time. That's a good point.
If I can just throw it out there, what we're doing, what we do in our school committee is the different subcommittees. We'll elect people to serve on the different subcommittees just so they get the feel for chairing a subcommittee or something like that. And then if the time comes up for the chair to be to looking for a new chair, then that person, either somebody can nominate them or they can volunteer to do that. And it gives them some experience doing it. And I think that works well, as well as for what we talked about, it going for an extended period of time. The elections for the actual members are 3 years unless they get voted in. So there is always turnover. So the fact of somebody staying on for an extended period of time, I don't think, at least in our case, I don't think it's an issue, but
I guess to speak to Amy and Jeff's point at the same time, that I agree with Jeff that with the turnover and the voting process being every 3 years, that if we don't like who's doing things at this time, then we can easily, as a town or as a district or however it's going to work, vote them out. And secondly, to speak to Amy's point, it probably wouldn't be a bad thing to say a chairperson cannot serve as the chair for more than 3 years in a row, right? The length of their term. You can only be the chairperson for the length of your term.
Jim,
that would be
that
solve
makes
all
me
of
a
it.
little bit nervous, going back to the fact where if we don't, if we have members on there that are not comfortable serving as a chair, or don't have the time, there are time constraints where they can't serve as a chair. I just hate to have people not volunteer to be on the committee at all because they'd be afraid that they'd have to be chair or there wouldn't be a chair on there. Again, I understand where you're going, but I go back to, I think, I don't think it's a bad thing to leave it to the school committee to vote the members in, to vote the chair in.
Right.
And I agree with you 100, well, we'll call it 99%. I agree that the school committee should be voting its own chair. 100, that's 100% in my opinion. If I was on the school committee and I had a select board saying, we're going to decide who the chair of the school committee is, I would tell them in no uncertain terms to mind their own business. However, if you're joining the school committee and you're hesitant about serving as the chair of the school committee, then maybe you shouldn't join the school committee.
I would just add this. I mean, remember, it's very hard to get folks to actually volunteer for public service. Okay. Whether it be select board, whether it be school committee. And I certainly would love a world, right, that you had 10 or 5 or 6, depending, folks running for school committee or select board. But I'm going to tell you that, that's not the case. And I think if you put too many of these obstacles in the way, folks whom are, and it's easy to say, well, then they don't deserve to be on the board, but you do need people to help make these decisions. And I think we've seen this at, local town government too. So I think the board should absolutely be able to pick. Remember, this is a collection of people who want to be part of the Narragansett Regional School District School Committee. You should allow them to pick their chair because that's the body, in which is going to make these decisions. It's just my 2 cents, just seeing that we don't get a lot of people who are exactly jumping over each other to be part of public service.
You do. I think Chris makes a great point. Community service.
And I agree with Dr. Cassavant on that. I 100%, Dr. Cassavant, agree. The school committee. I was just kind of trying to play devil's advocate and saying, if we put the 3-year term limit of a chairperson in there, it would satisfy some of the outside voices. That's all I was saying.
Yes, and I agree with you that there should be some type of checks and balances on a normal, just on a scale. But I think that sometimes we can put up so many barriers. But so I think we all agree on these certain type of, these issues. If we had a lot of people wanting to be part of these committees, I think this would be something that we definitely would have to do, quite frankly, right?
So Jeff, I guess my question is, I put this in brackets here, what is the consensus for tonight? Should we come up with some language that you can look at next week, or do we want to not consider that at all, the term limit?
No, I think it's another case that's not broken. Why mess with it?
I would, basically a really short anecdote. My last term as a superintendent was a very busy time in the district, lots and lots of initiatives, and it really helped to have the same capable chairperson for more than one term. It was a big help. Now, if you want term limits that, I think you just got to be really careful with it, because stability is a good thing, especially when you find some capable people who are willing to do it.
And again, I just want to mention again that it's not just, the chairperson is one thing, but it's also, you still have the MASC, you have other committees. There are a lot of duties in there, and there are, you need to know the meeting laws and things like that. So I'm opposed to it. I don't think. How about Mac for now? How about I wouldn't have you folks come up with different language. Why don't we leave it and just see how it goes in the next meeting? See if it.
Can I just make a comment, please? I just wanted to say, I think it works especially well because we have the staggered board. So you're reorganizing every year and re-electing a chair every year. So somebody isn't automatically the chair for 3 years because they got re-elected and then re-elected again. So you're deciding every year who the chair is. I think that's more than fair.
Yeah,
that's a great idea.
It's a good point. Okay, so we will,
Before you move on, I know it's almost time here. Chris or Susan, do you call the second in command a vice chair or assistant chair?
Vice chair, I believe it is.
Yeah, vice chair.
Okay, we'll leave that in. One
Okay.
last thing here.
yeah, so powers and duties, there's not much that needs to change here. We just took out the first sentence because you don't need to restate that there is existing law on the books. And relative to the quorum, another possible change is that do you want to make mention of participation remotely in the time between meetings? My personal feeling is you don't need to put that in because you can vote it on a temporary basis when you need it. But the other business is that a majority vote must include one vote from each member town. And this gets back to what the gentleman was saying earlier in the meeting. So it's just one other thing that you can put in there to define a quorum. And then in the purple language, are there other issues in the interest of trying to encourage the towns to work together and to cooperate with one another? Are there other issues that should require a vote that requires approval votes from both member towns? And you folks know that better than we do, but this has come up in other regional agreements where and I'll give you an example. In order to hire a new superintendent, that the vote must include votes of approval from both member towns. So, maybe the budget already requires a 2/3 majority, so you don't need to restate that. But if there are sensitive issues and you want both towns to be on board with them, this is the place where it would be mentioned.
That does kind of tie into one question I had from the very beginning when we reordered and renamed some of the table of contents of the agreement itself. We have currently a provision that was called assignment of pupils, which has been a big contention with Phillipston versus Templeton and our elementary school. I'm wondering if that's addressed elsewhere, and then that particular vision did require 7/8 to move more than 90% or something. That was a major provision of contention this year. I'm wondering how that would fit in.
Yeah, so that's going to be addressed later in the agreement. Okay, but it is an example of one of the things that does get mentioned sometimes in regional agreements, that when you start to move kids around, it requires that the board really have a super majority, that people from both communities like the idea.
Thank you.
This is it, section 12, assignment of pupils. So that's down the road a ways. We'll get to that. I think, Jay, we ought to stop here, even though there's just one more section we had prepared, but it's after 6:30, and you've had a lot to think about, and it'll be helpful to wrestle with that and see if we can come to some conclusions next month.
Yeah, we will take your comments and try to build them into a document we can bring back to you next month. I don't want to forget to try to find some new meeting dates.
Yeah. Okay. So, so before we go to the meeting dates, just before we wrap up, are there any questions or comments from any of the members? Is there anything that anybody didn't get a chance to say?
I think that I would probably agree with about 95% of the suggested alterations that we've all seemed to have a consensus on so far tonight. And it looks like we're moving in the right direction. That's all I got to say.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jim. So the dates, I believe, we had some dates out there. I believe we have February 23rd, March 23rd. My understanding is, I believe there was a conflict for the April meeting. Is that correct? I think we had it on the 13th.
Yeah, so Chris had a conflict with the suggested date in April, and Mac and I were hoping we could find another date in that month where we could make it, and then perhaps find a May date as well.
Yep. Is April. So a week, 1, 2, 3, 4. So April was the 20. No, were we holding the 13th for April? I'm just looking at my notes.
Yeah,
Or was that the suggested date? I'm sorry.
I thought it was,
I think Chris said it was the fourth Tuesday, which is what we're started on,
Yeah.
is not available. So we need to find another one in April.
Yeah, and that's why I have April, in my notes, I have April 13th, and I just wasn't sure if that was a suggested date. I'm not sure where the April 3rd, where I got that from.
well, the fourth Tuesday would be the 27th. That might have been the conflict.
Yes.
Is there, let me see, April is a vacation week.
yeah, that's the third week in April.
That's
is
the
the-
20th, Susan?
The 19th through the 23rd, I believe, is that week.
Okay. So that might be where I got the 13th. Could we go to the 13th on that?
We have a finance subcommittee meeting on the 13th.
That's what, oh, okay, okay.
Could we
So that would
try-
bounce it to what, the 27th?
The 27th, Chris wasn't available.
What if we did like a Wednesday, the 14th? I feel like as we move forward in the next few months, it's going to start steamrolling and snowballing, and we're going to need to maybe move these meetings up from more than once a month, or at least, still do it once a month, but throw in every third week whenever we can.
Wednesdays are bad for both select boards and the school committee regular meetings.
Yep.
as far
Yeah,
as I've
didn't
seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think of that.
Well,
I'm
right
free
now
Mondays
during
and
budget
Thursdays.
season also, it's tough for the school committee because we are having multiple meetings a
Yeah.
month.
Susan, what are Thursdays like for the school committee?
Let me take a look here.
What is the problem with what is it, the 20th of April? Is it just because it's a vacation week?
Yes, typically we don't do meetings during that week, but
I mean, it's the middle of a pandemic.
It's not against the rules. You can still meet.
right.
Yeah, I mean,
Honestly, I mean, Jeff, as the chair, I guess this is your call. As far as Dr. Cassavant's schedule,
Yep.
fortunately, he had to drop off of this meeting right now, so I'm not sure of what.
So Susan, let me just throw it out there. How about if we just move it to could we move it to the Thursday on that week? The 29th at 5
what?
p.m.
April?
Yes. Is that a problem with anybody?
I'm good.
Not that I can see on our end.
No, it should be all right.
I'm good.
Let's try it. Let's
Yeah,
try it.
why don't we hold that date then? We'll hold the 29th of April for the April meeting, okay?
At 5
Okay.
p.m.,
April.
same time?
And then May and June, we go back to the fourth Tuesday.
Correct. Yep. And then so May, it looks like we're going to the 25th, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Correct.
And do we want to throw a June in there and go to, we'll just stick with the 4th?
Yes.
That would be the 29th, correct?
22nd.
22nd.
1, 2, 3. Yeah, if I could count, it'd be okay. Yes, you're right. The 22nd. Okay.
Great.
That's wonderful. That's
So
wonderful.
it looks like we have a decent schedule ahead of us, or at least, yeah. Okay.
Well,
Months at least, right?
Can we just confirm
what was
February and March's dates, just while
I have them as, I think they're both on the 23rd, if I'm not mistaken.
third? Okay.
The 23rd.
Yeah.
And they're all at 5 p.m., correct?
Yep.
And as of right now, we're doing virtual for everything.
Right.
Yep.
I would just add from a self-serving point of view for Jay and me, it's helpful to have 2 or 3 weeks at least, or it's helpful to have the month in between, because once we get going, we'll be communicating with the Department of Education. We can't always get them immediately. Sometimes it takes 3 or 4 days or a week to get them back to us before we can say, is this kind of language okay? So we need time to kind of in between to regroup and get things organized for you for the next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got, let's see, we got 5 meeting dates. That's great.
Okay. So I think we're good through there. So, again, with that, I will take a, motion to adjourn.
Second,
Who's making
So
the first
moved.
motion?
Yeah, I'll
Thank you,
take
Christine.
yours as a motion to adjourn, and do I get a second?
you have
I'll
a
second.
second from me.
I didn't have a motion though, James. I needed I need a motion.
Oh, a motion to adjourn.
Yes. Do I have a second?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a great
Get there, guys.
month,
Thank you.
and we'll see you next month. Okay.
Thank you
All
for
right.
listening.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate
Have a
it.
great night.
Thank you,
Good
Jane.
night, everyone.